Did you know that I actually masquerade as the Christmas angel at this time of year? Failing that, I've got some little fabric Christmas trees for you to make. These are really good, beginner-friendly, nice, quick and easy fabric makes for you this Christmas. So I'm going to show you exactly how to make them in this tutorial. So I am Kim, this is Quilt with Kim. You're very welcome. Let's get making. To make these then, you are going to need a couple of fat quarters from your local craft store, or if you've got them kicking around, they'll be fine. I've got some red and green ones here, but you can have any fabric you like at all. It does not have to be Christmas fabric. They're really effective out of non-Christmas fabric, as I have shown you here. You're going to need some coordinating thread for that, because we want to have some kind of edge to our branches there. If you've got scraps, use your scraps up. It's a great scrap buster this. You are going to need a pencil, a pair of scissors. You're going to need a side plate. So this one here is 9 inches across. I would recommend about that size. You can go a bit bigger. I wouldn't go too much smaller because it would get a bit fiddly. So 9 inches is probably a perfect size, but you know, if it's 10 or 11, that'll be fine. Your Christmas trees will just be a bit bigger. Okay, so let's move on and we'll get on to the first instruction. I'm going to use my scraps, so please make sure whatever fabric you're using, you give it a very good press first to get all those crinkles and folds and all the other stuff that you don't want out of your fabric. So good press. You don't need to pre-wash for these at all. Doesn't matter if you have, you just don't need it. So what we're going to do is get our fabric wrong side up, and yes, I have ironed this. It's just my camera, being 4K, manages to pick up every single minute little crease known to man, so it looks worse than it is. So you are going to need 2 circles. So I'm going to do a circle out of my white fabric and a circle out of my red fabric here. So I'm going to draw round the plate on the reverse of the fabric. I'm going to do the same on the red, and I am going to cut those out. Next up, we're going to sew these right sides together. So I'll put one on top of the other. If your cutting is not very even, don't worry about it. It all disappears inside the seam. So I've lined my edges up. I'm going to stick a few pins in. I don't need too many, just enough to hold this together. And by the way, a bit of a pro tip when you're pinning, when you put your pins perpendicular to the edge, so the point is going to the edge, that makes it far easier to whip them out when you need to. And if you do need to stitch over them, you can. So let's go all the way around. Now, when we're sewing round the edge, we're going to leave a gap. So I'm going to put a couple of pins. So I'll put my pins in. I've got a couple of pins that are my marker for my gap. And what I do, this is another little pro tip, is I put a little pin in horizontally. Let's choose another pin because you can't see white on white. I'm going to put another pin in horizontally. So that tells me not to get carried away and do that little bit there. So all I'm going to do is stitch round that circle. We're going to sew about 1/4 inch away from the edge. So if you have a computerized machine, that means you need to set your stitch width to 5.5. That'll put your needle into the place for 1/4 inch. If you've got a 1/4 inch foot, you can use that as well. So let's get over to the machine and stitch round the edge. So this is where we're going to have our gap. I'm going to start stitching at the pin just in front of that gap, so I can end at the back end of the gap. if you like. So I'm going to drop my needle down in here, on my foot down. I'm going to drop my needle down. As I said, if you've got a little variation, don't worry too much, but I would follow probably the inside, this one on top here, so we've got a nice firm seam. But don't stress it too much. We just want these two stitched together. The Christmas tree will hide a multitude of sins for you. So we're going to start with a lock stitch. So that's where we go forwards and backwards and forwards. You see I'm lining up with just the edge of this white that happens to be on top here, as my cutting wasn't very good. Okay, take the pins out. Now when you're going around circles, the trick is to, it depends on the size of the circle. This is a big circle, so I would go round slowly and just gently move your fabric round, and we're always trying to get this edge of this circular fabric lining up to the edge of our foot. So don't go fast, because you want to be able to turn your fabric round. In a perfect world, this is just a little tip here, if you're sewing circles and they're small, you'd want to do a few stitches, stop with your needle in, and you can see how even this fabric is beginning to ruck up a bit. If I lift my presser foot slightly and move it back into position, it's just a slight move, it releases all those wrinkles and allows you to carry on. So the smaller the curve, the more that you would do that. But in this instance, the circle is pretty much big enough to go round, but if you're seeing wrinkles form, just lift and let your fabric relax. So let's go all the way around. Can you see how it's bunching up? So lift and let it relax. It's magic, isn't it? Okay, we've reached our marker pin, and this horizontal pin was there to remind me to not go any further, so I was getting carried away there. I'm going to take that pin out and I'm going to put a little lock stitch in there, just like that. Okay, so that is the stitching done. So let's move on to the next section and turn it through. Let's take these pins out, if you've got any left in, and we're going to find the gap, just that, and turn it through. Now, sometimes, well, most of the time, we need to clip into the seam for turning, when we're turning fabric through, but this is such a small seam, we actually don't need to. So get your hand in, or a pokey stick if you've only got a small gap. Really press those, push the seams out towards the edge. And can you see here where you get a straight section? That is completely normal when you're turning circles through. So you really want to get your fingers or an end of a pencil or something and get those seams really pushed out all the way round. Okay, and now we are going to give that a good press before we do the next bit. So let's get my iron. Okay, so let's give this a good press all over. And you really want to make sure that these edges are all pulled out and you're making them neat and sharp. That'll help you in the next bit. Okay. Oh, that's quite hot. Right, where we've got our gap, what we're going to do is tuck it in. Okay. And you'll probably find that you can't get the nice curve on it. To be honest, I wouldn't worry too much. I think there's plenty in life to worry about rather than a non-curvy little bit. Okay, you can do what you can and just tuck all that in. Okay, that's one side, and then I'll just switch over to the red on the other side, and again tuck that in. I do want to match up the edges here as much as I can, and it will want to come unfolded because, as we all know, fabric has a life of its own. Okay. All right, so look, it's flat across here. Honestly, don't worry if yours looks a bit like that. I promise it'll be fine. So the next thing we're going to do is top stitch that all the way around. So this is where I spoke about my coordinating fabric at the beginning. So I've got in my machine a white thread on the top and a red on the bobbin. So when I sewed it right sides together, this doesn't matter, by the way, but I happen to have the red on the bottom because my red fabric was going through, and I had the white on the top. But this time I'm going to change it round. So my white thread is going to be on the top and my red thread is going to be on the bobbin and show on the white, because that'll give us a really good effect on our tree, as you can see from this one here where I've done a zigzag and we've got the red on top of this creamy coloured here. So let's get back under the machine and top stitching. And if you're wondering, by the way, what all this is, I have no idea. There's some dye that's got transferred onto this fabric, but I can use it for these Christmas trees and Christmas decorations, and it doesn't matter. I don't like throwing things away if it's got a use to it, and absolutely this has got a use to it. So use up those scraps that you can't use anywhere else. Okay, finish with your quick press and let's get back under the machine for your top stitching. So this time I've got my red, as I said, facing up. So I've got the white thread that's going to go onto the red, and my red thread's in the bobbin, so that's going to show on the white. I'm actually going to start at the gap because that's the most problematical area, and that fabric will want to pop back out because we haven't got a very big seam allowance. So when I've got top stitching, little tip for you, I don't tend to lock stitch because it leaves sometimes it leaves a little bundle of thread, a little nest of thread. So what I do is I just start and then finish up over my original stitch line. So let me show you. That went out. And as we're coming up to the beginning of our stitch line again, if I get the thread out of the way, all I'm going to do is stitch over it, and then that locks it into place, and that stops you having that bird's nest effect going on. And let's get over, oops, that stitch line there. Okay, so let's finish that. So we've got our top stitch all the way around, and this is where the fun starts. You might want to just double check that you have captured your gap, by the way, and I can't find it. It's there and it's captured. So you want to make sure that that's all stitched down, but otherwise let's get on and make our tree. Can you see how the red thread has shown up really nicely on the white, and my white has shown up really nicely on my red? Of course, you could use metallic thread if you want to. That looks really fantastic on these Christmas trees. First up then, you need to decide what fabric you want on the outside. Do you want the red showing on the outside, or do you want your white? Whichever fabric you want on the outside of the tree is the one that needs to be on the bottom right at the moment. So having decided that, flip it in half, fold it in half, so you get a semicircle like so, okay? And I'm going to give that a quick press. So you want to probably do this on your ironing board. Then what we're going to do is turn it. If you're right-handed, you want the curve on your right. If you're left-handed, I would swap it over. It will just make your life a little bit easier. So then what we're going to do, we're going to go to about 3 inches up, give or take, of our curve. Okay, it doesn't need to be an exact measurement. It's just where I've discovered is about optimal to do the curve. So it's about 3 inches. Then if I put my finger on here, okay, on my 3 inch, and I'm going to hold this top bit and pull it all the way over. So a couple of mistakes to avoid is making this gap too wide. You want to pull it over, so you've got about an inch, inch and a half maybe. There, it's probably just over an inch at the bottom. Okay, so we've got that first curve going, and you can give it a press or a finger press, whatever is easier for you. Then we're going to do the same back the other side. So I'm going to hold at this point here. It just helps you if you hold it. And I'm going to take this top bit and pull it all the way over. But what I'm looking for is to make sure that this fold matches up with our bottom fold just there. Can you see? So I don't want it pulling over here. I don't want it kind of relaxing halfway over there. Guess you can if you like. But I want to try and get it so the two folds match. It takes far longer to explain than to actually do, but having got those folds in the right order, I can give that a quick press if I want, and then I'm going to do the same and flip that back to that side. Okay, so we've got a flip going back there, and then our final little flip at the top, and it really depends where it ends up. So if you've got that kind of thing going on, you think, ooh, I don't like that very much, then fiddle about with your curves and perhaps pull it in a little bit further. Okay, so where we had our 3 inches, maybe you've gone just a bit too far, so pull it back in a bit. So it's about 2.5 inches, so I get that curve, pull it back that way, and then back to the top, and that looks a bit better, doesn't it? So if it's not quite working out where you need it to, fiddle about with those folds to get it where you want. So what we want to do is give that a good press all over. And if you've got bits of your branches sticking out, don't worry about it. Trees are all over the place. If you've got a little clip or a bulldog clip or something, just pop that in the top for now. Okay, so that's our tree almost ready to go, but what we want to do is pop a little hangy thing on the top there. So there's an extra couple of little steps to put in. It won't take you long to finish, but it's looking good, isn't it? So let's move on and get the final little stitching done, and then you're good to go. To do our twine then, this is my school mom look, by the way. School mom meets Christmas angel. It's a good combo, I think. I think it could catch on. So we need a needle threaded up. This is just a standard needle with just normal polyester thread in it, and I'm in red to match my tree. So if I take my clip off, I'm going to stitch about 1/2 inch down. This is just to close the gap at the top, and it stops your tree coming undone, which it kind of does if you don't do this bit. So I'm going to hide my knot deep in the branches of the tree, Okay. And let's just get a couple of stitches in there, right at the top. Right, so we've stitched up the top there, so that should hold that. Let's get a little knot hidden inside to finish off. If you don't want to do a knot, just a couple of little stitches will generally hold it, but I am going to do a knot to hide that in there, and let's snip that off. Still got threads. Everything's going flying. Okay, so that's my tree there stitched up at the top, and you can see it doesn't come apart. We will be giving this a good press right at the end so it all starts flattening down just like this one has here. But first we have to put the hanging twine on, just like this one. So I've got a needle threaded up, so this time I've got a really big wide-eyed needle. This is a tapestry needle, if I can get that close enough. So it's got quite a wide big eye in it, and I've got some twine threaded through ready to go. So what I'm going to do is go up in underneath the first fold, or even in here, that doesn't matter either way, and push through your fabric from underneath. And I want to put it through enough because I want to go back down the other way. So I've used a twine here, parcel twine, that's actually a bit thick, but stranded cotton is probably your best bet. So what you'd normally use for cross stitch. So if you're a cross stitcher and you've got some stranded cotton kicking around, that will be perfect for you and a lot easier to go in and out of your fabric. So having gone up one way, all I need to do is go back the other way, which is going to be quite interesting considering how tough that was. There we go. And pull it through. So I've now got a loop at the top. I'm going to unthread my needle. And you really want to just pull this loop here as long or as short as you want it. But I've got it about that long, which is about 4 inches. And then all we're going to do is pop a little knot at the other end. Okay, pull that tight, snip the excess off, and then as you pull it, it'll disappear into that fold there. And then if you finish with a really good press, that is your Christmas tree made out of fabric. They're good, aren't they? So have fun making those. Let me know how you get on, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.